It's time for dinner.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong.
From the creative mind of Scott Bertelson, after 4 decades of teaching our impressionable youth,
The dinner bell.
you are invited to enjoy conversational morsels for the mind at Mr. B's dinner party.
Yeah, dinner.
Hello? I'm knocking on your door. Don't go and hide. I'm not selling Avon. I'm not selling vacuums. I'm not selling anything except a wonderfully delicious meal. Wouldn't you like to partake of that? Well, come on. It's time for Mr. B's dinner party. And it's time to move that chair up to the table and experience all the delicacies that we are going to share together today. So, let's begin.
Let's have a seat round the proverbial table
Would you like to say grace?
with a nod to our higher power and Mr. B's spiritual journey.
For my spiritual journey, I've got a quiz for you today. No, you don't have to take out paper. No, you don't have to go to Google. But I've got 5 questions for you for overeating. And depending on how you answer these questions, which is only your business, once again, do not mail these to me or text these to me or email them to me. It's important for you to know if you do have a food addiction problem. And I took this quiz many years ago and realized that food was simply more than simple nourishment for my body. It was way more than that. It was my friend. It was my lover. It was my worst enemy. It was my comforter, depending on the day or the time or what kind of poisonous food I was inhaling. Food now is simply my nourishment to keep my body moving and keep my energy level high as best as I can do. But my first question is this: do you eat when you're not hungry? Or don't eat when your body needs nourishment? Once again, do you eat when you're not hungry or not eat when your body needs nourishment? Yes or no? I have had so many times in my life, here's my commentary, where I ate and I wasn't hungry. But I was emotionally hungry. I was psychologically hungry. I was suffering from stress, self-induced stress. I couldn't find my car keys. It's time to binge. That'll help it. I missed the deadline for a credit card payment. Had to pay a fine. Oh, food will help that situation. I'll just eat. No, didn't help at all. Made it worse. I gained weight, and I still had to pay the late fee. Here's the next question. Do you go on eating binges for no apparent reason? Sometimes eating until you're stuffed or even feel sick. For me, I can only answer this by saying abundantly yes. I have eaten so many times when I wasn't physically hungry, but my brain said, my sick brain, my alcoholic brain said, keep eating, keep eating, keep eating. And in order to shut off that voice in my head, that resounding voice, I ate and ate and ate. And even though I knew I was physically full and I felt like a bloated heifer, I kept ingesting food. So by the time I would waddle to bed, I would have to take lots of Tums or antacid or Alka-Seltzer, whatever you want to call it, to try to settle my stomach so I could sleep. And then that didn't even work. Throughout the night, then I would be sleepy the next day, cranky, irritable at myself. And did I take it out on other people? Oh, you betcha. Proud of that now? Oh, no, not at all. Now I don't do that. So we've covered the first question and the second question. And let's go to the third question. Do you have feelings of guilt, shame, or embarrassment about your weight or the way that you eat? Once again, do you have feelings of guilt, shame, or embarrassment about your weight or the way you eat? Guilt, shame. My two favorite words I lived by during my alcoholic years of binge eating. I felt guilty for everything. I grew up in an environment at home, once again, past it, no more blame, just a reality check, where guilt was very easy to inflict on me from other people for various things that happened. And I internalized that so well. That gave me good excuse to overeat, right? Right? And of course, what is associated with guilt but shame? I was ashamed that I wasn't as skilled to work on the farm as I wanted to be. I always had two left hands. I was ashamed that I couldn't quite measure up to what my dad wanted me to do for physical labor. I was ashamed that I was not a fan of sports, and I couldn't sit down and talk about sports with the boys. And now, that's all gone. All gone. Because I am made the way that I am. Just because I may not want to discuss in detail how the Vikings did last week with somebody doesn't mean that I'm any less of a person. I have many, many, many other things that I can talk about with somebody. Guilt. It still creeps in occasionally. If I've not measured my food, which I don't do a very good job of, I admit that, and I'm starting to feel what I would term bloated, then I have to stop, no matter where I am with my food, even though maybe I haven't had my allotted portions for the day. My body might be reacting in a different way that I can't explain. So the embarrassment also came about with my weight. How many millions of times have I gone to the doctor's office and took everything off except my underwear? Nobody wants that. And said, don't tell me what I weigh. Why am I afraid to know that? I'm at the weight that God has put me at. Now, if I want to change that, then I have to work with my HP. Then I have to revamp my eating program or incorporate more exercise or a combination thereof. But I also was highly embarrassed, felt guilty about the way that I used to eat. I used to shovel it in, shovel. There was no time for taste. No. That wasn't the purpose of a meal. The purpose was to get as much into my body as fast as possible. I had to make sure I got my fair share. I had to make sure there was plenty enough for me. And there always was. I never, ever, ever, ever went hungry growing up, ever. My parents provided very abundantly that way. Maybe too much, but I'm not blaming them. I made that choice to overeat. And so I was embarrassed at times by the way I ate. And so if I went out to eat with people or if I was in a public area, I would really try to refine my eating habits and try to eat more slowly, actually digest my food, actually taste my food. But that was never enough to really get me to stop binge eating until I admitted my problem. Here's the next question. Do you eat sensibly in front of others and then make up for it when I'm alone? Ho ho! Ho ho! Winner, winner, chicken dinner on that one. Once again, do I eat sensibly in front of others and then make up for it when I'm alone? Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. No way. How many times I've done this? I'd go out for supper with friends, have a balanced meal so they would think, oh, Scott eats so sensibly. I still can't really understand why he's overweight. It must be a thyroid problem. No. And so I would have this great, well-balanced meal, and then I'd go through the drive-thru at McDonald's and stuff my face with McChickens and fries. So by the time I got home, I had the bloated cow syndrome again. Or if I've gone out to eat and then I stop at a convenience store and get a bag of chips, or I get half a gallon of ice cream and eat it in the car, or get slices of pizza, whatever it would be. I'd always end up having 2 meals as opposed to the 1 meal. That's really all I needed for sustenance, for living. So yes, I've done that. And the next question is your eating affecting your health or the way that you live? Yes for me. It was affecting my health. I had high blood pressure. My body ached. I couldn't sleep well. I would get these coughing jags in the middle of the night from all the food I had ingested, and I couldn't stop coughing. So I couldn't sleep. Therefore, the next day, I felt run down, which of course led me to even more overeating. Does it affect my life? Did it? Yes, because I was cut off from activities, because that would get in the way of my eating time, and we can't have that. So I use food as a way to lock the door, shut the phone off, and just put myself in this fairy tale, actually hell-inspired world of me and the carbohydrates. So a resounding yes from me on that one. So, here's another question. When your emotions are really intense, whether positive or negative, do you find yourself reaching for food? When your emotions are intense, do you find yourself reaching for food? Or maybe alcohol or drugs or spending money or sexual addiction, whatever it is. Once again, you know the answer for me. Yes. Especially negative emotions, shame, guilt, resentment, jealousy, any of those that I've largely given away to my higher power. They would create in me a desire to run to the nearest store and get chips and dip or candy bars. Anything that I shouldn't have, that's what I wanted, because that would help lessen the pain of those intense emotions. Or so I thought. But it didn't work. Ever. Next question. Do your eating behaviors make you and others unhappy? Oh, yes. I was married twice. During both of those marriages, I was an overeater, and I did whatever I could to make my partner unhappy. Because if I'm unhappy, you better be unhappy too. I can't stand having anybody around me who's happy with themselves. Absolutely not. Now, when I taught all those years, I kept that all hidden. That was just reserved for spouses or relatives or a brother or a sister, that I would do whatever I could to make them unhappy so we could wallow in self-pity. Ugh. What a waste. Have you ever, next question, used laxatives, vomiting, diuretics, excessive exercise, diet pill, shots, or other medical interventions to try to control your weight? Laxatives, vomiting, diuretics, excessive exercise, diet pills, shots, medical interventions. For me, of these listed here, would be diet pills and going to a diet place called Diet Center years and years ago. And so the answer, of course, for me would be yes. I never would throw up. I never used diuretics or laxatives. And I certainly never did excessive exercise. I'm not making light of that. I'm just saying I've heard podcasts where people talk about how they ran 15 miles every day or more, or got on the stationary bike so then they could eat those extra calories and still keep the weight off. That's still an addiction. Diet pills, I tried over the counter. I tried diet pills from a doctor. Couldn't sleep at night. Didn't really curb my hunger because it was more of an emotional hunger than a physical. I also joined some diet club in Forest City, oh my gosh, 30 years ago, where we ate a lot of tuna and tofu and green beans. Now there's a combination. So, was I going to spend the rest of my life eating tuna fish, tofu, and green beans? I don't think so. So that wasn't a good decision either. Did I lose the weight? Oh, yes. At that time, with a higher metabolism, I was losing 5 to 10 pounds a week. Oh, yes. Did it all come back as quickly? Oh, yes. Did I gain more? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The next question I have is, do you fast or severely restrict your food intake to control your weight? Do you severely restrict your food intake to control your weight? I am not a fan of fasting. I know there is such a thing as intermittent fasting. My son, one of my sons used to do that. I don't know if he does anymore. He says it works. You only you only eat within a certain frame of time, and then the rest of the time you don't ingest any food. But I could go the whole day without eating. No breakfast, no lunch, and I wasn't really hungry. And then, of course, the demons would start speaking with me about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then it was time to plan that binge. Restrict my food. I have before weighed and measured my food. When I first started practicing becoming spiritual again with my food and giving up certain foods, I did weigh and measure my foods. I had so many ounces of meat today, so many ounces of fruit, so many ounces of salad, so many ounces of vegetables, so much fat. And I still do that. It's the same plan that I've been on for years with a few modifications. And one is I don't necessarily use the scale. Whether that's right or wrong, that's where I'm at right now. Do I sometimes eat more protein than I should? Yes. Is that right? No. Because more of anything can lead to downfall, can lead to regression, can lead to relapse. Here's a question. Do you ever fantasize about how much better life would be if you were a different size or weight? Oh, my goodness. Do you fantasize about how much better life would be if you were a different size or weight? Oh, my, yes. I'd be that movie star. I'd be that shirtless man on the cover of a men's magazine advertising great fashion and making hundreds of dollars per hour or more for modeling. No. They never came knocking on my door, and they never called me. So I guess that didn't work. But I always thought that if I reached a certain weight, my life would be perfect. Perfect. I would never again experience frustration, shame, guilt, resentment, jealousy, any of those things. Oh, no. Because I would be the perfect weight and life would be perfect. Because that's one of the downfalls of our overeaters, that we're always striving for perfection. And there is no such thing. And so we use that as an excuse to overeat. Because, well, I can't be perfect today, I might as well eat. Okay, the next day comes. It's going to have a perfect day. You get up at 6 in the morning, by 6:30 your day has gone to hell. Well, that gives me a good reason today to overeat, and the pattern continues. So, with those questions, I hope you realize that if you think you've answered yes to the majority of them, or all of them, you probably do have an issue. Well, we all have issues. Come on, folks. I'm not taking a place in the perfect lineup today. No way. But you might want to do something about it. And there's things you can do. You can go to an Overeaters Anonymous website and get literature there. I'm not endorsing any one organization. You can find out from me some people you could get in contact with that could help you, maybe be your sponsor. I've talked about the importance of having a sponsor in this program to keep you honest and to keep your sponsor honest. That would be something you might want to think about too. So to end my session this week, these questions are not meant in any shape or form to make you feel any less of a person. The questions are to maybe have you think about your daily eating practices, and does something have to change? And remember, you can't do that on your own. It is not possible. You have to have the spiritual guidance of a higher power who will remove that desire to overeat from you if you trust the process. So, my friends, trust the process.
For the next course, come one, come all. Nothing spoiled here. From comfort classics to what's hot now. Film reviews from Mr. B's Rewatchables.
Now, my happy creative fans, I haven't talked about a TV show for a while. And then a couple weeks ago, I was watching FX. FX is a cable channel. It's a basic cable channel, but it's one of my favorites because of their original programming that they have on. For example, they are the ones who do the American Horror Stories that have been on for about 12, 13 years. Some seasons better than others, but a huge fan of that. They also are going to be doing a story about the Menendez brothers. Did I say that correctly? Coming up soon, about supposedly them killing their parents. They have done comedies, and now they have had the premiere of a half-hour comedy that's on, I believe, Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock, probably until the end of October. And then you could probably find it on streaming services, or you could buy it. Hopefully it will be renewed for a second season. From what I see, I can see why it should be. Or you can maybe find it on late night on FX. The show is called English Teacher. Oh, yeah, English Teacher. Part of the reason I was attracted to the show. I was an English teacher for 39 years. And here, in this half-hour comedy, we have an English teacher who teaches in Texas, and his name is Evan. And he's a gay high school English teacher.
He is here to teach you all about non-binary.
A non-binary person is somebody who does not identify as male or female.
Like a hermaphrodite.
No.
Yes.
Not at all. And that word is not in use anymore, is it?
I don't know.
And he has a couple of co-workers who work with him at the school, and they try to balance students and their parents. Now, this is not Abbott Elementary. No. It's, I think, TVMA for mature audiences. Now, there's a little swearing. That's why it's on at 9 o'clock or 9:30 at night. There's some situations talked about that would not be covered in Abbott Elementary. This is high school. That is elementary. And so if you keep that in mind, I think you can appreciate both. I surely do. I think this show and Abbott Elementary are very, very, very entertaining. So English Teacher, half-hour show, is an American comedy show created by Brian Jordan Alvarez. And I guess he's been an actor in some films. I had not seen him before. And not only did he create the show, but he plays the character of Evan, the high school English teacher at this high school. And he is always finding himself, now I've only seen 3 episodes, at intersection of professional, political, and personal life of a teacher.
The kids this year, they're not into being woke anymore.
It's circled back around.
It's circled all the way around.
They're saying the R word again.
And I'll explain that here in a little bit. One of the co-stars on the show is Stephanie Koenig, and she's a fellow teacher who's his best friend, and she's on the staff at this high school. And then also is his friend Sean Patton, one of those, who is a gym teacher and athletic director. They're quite polar opposites that way, but they look out for each other, and they're really good friends.
Well, there he is. Eric Not So Speedy Gonzalez, 1751. Wow.
The high school principal is Enright Collerton, and he is incredibly funny as the principal.
No vaping, I can smell it.
So I do hope you'll take some time to see this show. Brian was a regular, I think, in the last couple seasons, maybe the last season of the rebooted Will and Grace. And you may have seen him there. Now, let me give you a taste of English Teacher. In the first episode, Evan, our hero, the gay high school English teacher, is in trouble with a parent in the community who has filed a complaint against him, that he has displayed signs of affection for his boyfriend around students. At that time, Evan was dating another teacher on the staff, another male teacher. And somehow, whether this was in the hallway or in the classroom or whatever, they were sharing a brief moment of affection. And this parent thought this was wrong and was going to do whatever she could to get rid of Evan as a high school teacher. There's no place for affection in school. And I'm not saying that there is. I'm not endorsing any of this.
You're being investigated. Why doesn't Marky ever get investigated for all that stuff he says?
But anyway, the show then deals with how he is going to come to his defense, and he was supposed to write a letter of apology to this woman, and the principal thought maybe that will stop her from trying to take him off the staff. And he just didn't feel like he had done anything wrong. And so he wrote this letter, and then come to find out that she dropped the charges against him. And probably the primary reason is that her son, the one who saw him kissing another guy, I guess, whatever the definition of kissing would be, was gay. And so she didn't want that out in the community. Now, what sets this show apart is the teacher is very open with his students about his lifestyle. And the students are very open about accepting him in his lifestyle choice, because it has nothing to do with his teaching ability. And so he's highly respected as an English teacher. And because he respects his students, he's very open with them. Whereas I'm trying to think of comedies in the past. Room 222, remember that show? Was that on in the 60s? Oh, I can't even remember. I think so. There's Welcome Back, Kotter, other shows too, where this was never talked about. This was a taboo subject. And again, on a cable station at 9 o'clock at night, when the kids should probably be in bed, you can do this on a show such as this. For example, in the second episode, it's homecoming at the high school. And the girls are going to do the powder puff football, and so they're being trained. And the guys, the football players, are going to be the cheerleaders. Now, cross-dressing for homecoming and other events has gone on for years. Some schools endorse it, some don't. Whatever the choice is. But this time, Evan, the English teacher, brings in a professional drag impersonator to teach the boys how to really look and play the part of a cheerleader. And so this drag star comes in and shows them how to dance and how to move and how to wear heels and how to wear makeup and how to dress and all of this. Again, I'm not endorsing it. I'm not saying it should be done. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I just find it very, very clever. I find it very, very creative. If you want the boys to come off as authentic as the girls are in Powder Puff, then why not do this? Unfortunately, it doesn't work out. You find out that the drag artist is stealing everything from the school that he should not have, and they do catch him, and he doesn't get any of that. But the boys felt great about what they did. They were still okay with their masculinity. The girls played the Powerpuff football, had a great time. And so I thought that was a great lesson in being yourself and trying to be happy with yourself. And if you're going to do something, make a change, make a big change. Now, where will the rest of the episodes go? I'm not sure. But I'm going to find out because I'll be watching. And I'm sure that many adult issues will be commented on in this show, English teacher. And maybe we'll find out more about him as an actual teacher. The focus, I don't think, overall for this show is going to be in his classroom. I think it's going to be his relationships with his fellow teachers and the fellow students. And the student body is a very welcoming, accepting group of young people, which I find very refreshing. They're not hiding behind any kind of stereotype. They're trying to appreciate all lifestyles. And you see lots of different types of students in this show. It's not your traditional Leave It to Beaver type classroom or the classroom in Mayberry where they all dress the same, look the same, and all sit the same. No, it's not that way at all. And it won't ever be that way again, I'm sure.
You can't call me Fruit Loop, Marky.
That's just the name of a cereal, buddy.
Then why don't you say Cheerios?
Because there ain't nothing gay about Cheerios.
So, that's all I can really say about English Teacher on FX, Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock. I think you should think about seeing it. If it's not your cup of tea, I respect that. But I respect the writing. I respect the chances this show is taking. And I hope to see more of it. English Teacher on FX. I think it's safe to say that I am a fan of horror films. Now, I haven't talked about a lot of horror films on my podcast. I did do the original Halloween for last Halloween, and I'm choosing another one, a classic, for this upcoming Halloween. And I do try to seek out horror films as much as I can because I find them very, very entertaining, especially if they're done well. And I love the special effects, and I love the surprise endings. Probably the most prominent horror film that would be important to me right at the top of the list would be The Exorcist. The Exorcist came out in 1973. Wow. Which is an American supernatural horror film. It was directed by William Friedkin, and William Peter Blatty did the screenplay, who also wrote the 1971 novel. The film stars Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow, Jason Miller, and, of course, Linda Blair as the possessed girl. And it's a story about the so-called demonic possession of a young girl and her mother's attempt to rescue her through an exorcism by 2 Catholic priests. Now, I believe I was in 8th grade or a freshman. What's the difference? In 1973. And it was playing in Mason City. And it was rated R. And there was no way that I was 17. My friend and I were dying to see this film. So we concocted a story with my parents that we wanted to see this movie. They had no idea what it was about. No idea. They had no idea what it was rated. They didn't pay any attention to things like that. And we gave them some cock and bull story that it was a love story about, I don't know, 2 people who live on a farm and fall in love. I don't know what it was. And they said, okay, we'll take you up and you can see it. So we accomplished that. Well, then we wanted to know how were we going to get into the show where the theater was being very, very adamant about you showing your license, driver's license, which we did not even have. We maybe had a learning permit. I don't know. And so we didn't know if we'd be able to get in or not. So my parents took us up to the Palace Theater, the Palace in Mason City. And we got dumped off as they went to visit somebody. And we walked through the doors. And we were coming up to the ticket person. And we put our hands in our pockets like we were going to pull out our driver's license, which we did not have. And the person didn't even ask for it. No, we got in. We couldn't believe it. We said to ourselves, we're going to see the greatest horror film of all time. And we had read that people were throwing up, passing out. The ambulance was called from the vulgar violence and gore, so to speak, of the film. And so we were expecting all of that. And what did we get instead? A theater full of people laughing. They laughed at her head spinning around. They laughed her spewing green pea stew. They laughed what she did with the crucifix. They laughed when she would rise from the bed and twist and turn like a demon. Maybe that's the only way they knew how to respond. I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. Because I had read the book. I had to buy the paperback book because the librarian in Sheffield at that time would not let me check it out. She said it was too adult, that I should not be reading that. And so, of course, if a teenager can get around something, they will. So I just bought my own copy and read it. So I was prepared. But why does this movie resonate with me yet today? Because of the acting, the special effects for 1973, and the story. It's so intriguing. And you can find this movie on, especially during the Halloween time, on a basic cable station or a streaming service, or you can rent it, or you can purchase it. It's there. Now, it's had a number of sequels. Exorcist 2, I guess, was really, really bad. Never seen it. Exorcist 3, I really like. Really, 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 really like. Might talk about that sometime because it does relate to the original Exorcist. There's prequels been done. There was a reboot of The Exorcist, and it's going to be made into a trilogy about a year ago. And the film is called Exorcist Believer, I believe, and it was a total bomb. I saw it. It was terrible. And so that's all been revamped, and they are coming out with another Exorcist, but it's going to be a different director, different story, and maybe there'll be some more hope for the future of the Exorcist franchise. It was released in 25 theaters in December of 1973. The reviews were mixed, but audiences, and I remember seeing this in magazines, waited in long lines during the cold winter. They had sold-out shows all the time because people wanted to say that they had seen The Exorcist. Some cities even attempted to ban it or prevent children from attending. At the end of the original theatrical run, the film grossed $193 million. In 1973, that's a lot of money. And it's had a lifetime gross, and it's been re-released a number of times, $441 million. It was the first horror film to ever be nominated by the Academy Award for Best Picture. Now that tells you that it's quality, as well as 9 other awards. It did win Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound. And the Library of Congress has chosen it as being a film that's culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So that should tell you that this is not your run-of-the-mill schlocky made-for-$2 film. No, not at all. The story is that a priest Marin, is on an architectural dig in the ancient ruins of the country of Hetra. During the dig, he finds a winged being that evokes a concerning look on his face. Simultaneously, in Georgetown, Washington, Chris McNeil, as played by Ellen Burstyn, is an actress, and she and her daughter Megan, 12 years old, are renting a luxurious house while she's making a film. So there she meets Damien Karras, who is a priest, who's also a psychiatrist. And he is at a crisis of faith in this film. It's like he wants to leave the priesthood. He doesn't know if he believes anymore or not. Anyway, what happens then is, as the film goes on, I'll just give you some of the major details. Reagan, the daughter, her personality becomes very violent, but there doesn't seem to be any physical causes. She exhibits abnormal strength. She probably killed somebody, though it's never really said. She gets sores on her body. She stabs herself with a crucifix. She turns her head around. She spews pea soup. She becomes confined to her bedroom, and everybody believes that she is possessed. So then Chris, the mother, brings in the priest to see if he can deem whether or not the daughter is possessed. And so he says yes. And so then he calls in Miriam, the priest that we met at the beginning of the film, and he comes in, and together they are going to perform an exorcism. And when they come in to the room, everything is flying around, the bed is shaking, the daughter is floating above the bed. There's so many special effects that are just absolutely amazing. Anyway, they perform a series of exorcism acts over the child, and what happens is that Reagan, or the demons inside Reagan, kill the old priest Miriam, and the other priest then says, "Please come into me, and they do, and he throws himself out the window and down a long flight of stairs and supposedly dies. Now, that's where Exorcist 3 comes in. So there's a correlation between the two films about the death of the priest. Reagan, of course, remembers nothing of the ordeal. they move to another city, and that's the end of the film. Now, that's just a skeletal outline of what happens. But what makes it so inventive is this slow descent into being possessed by a demon that this girl goes through, and how the medical field, she meets every psychiatrist, every psychologist, every doctor, every specialist, and they ultimately, the only thing they can say to Reagan's mom is that maybe you want to think about getting an exorcist. And so then when the Father Karras wants to perform the exorcism, the Catholic Church is not so willing to do it because they don't really believe in it anymore. They think it's more of a psychological, mental state. It's not actual possession by demons. But he does get permission to do it. And so the film is very, very much also about Father Karras, about his journey of losing his faith, regains it for the exorcism, and what he will do to save this little girl's life. And so I hope sometime you will make the decision to watch the original Exorcist, the 1973 film. It is horribly scary and visually frightening. And Linda Blair, as Reagan, the 12-year-old possessed child, is phenomenal. You never did hear much from Linda Blair after this. She was in Exorcist 2, which is a total bomb. And then her acting career didn't really seem to go anywhere after that. But in this film, she is so convincing that she is being possessed by a demon. They use different voices to come out of her that represent the demons. And it makes you want to sit on the edge of your seat. And it still does for me after all these years. And I've seen it a number of times. But I really respect its artistry. It's not your typical Friday the 13th, Freddy Nightmare, anything like that. It's on such a higher level that you really owe it to yourself to see probably the greatest horror film of all time and most acclaimed horror film of all time. And that would be The Exorcist. Folks, that's all I've got time for today. You learned about a new show called English Teacher. Not social studies teacher, but English teacher. You heard about the classic horror film, The Exorcist. And we went through a quiz for you to determine if you're an overeater and what maybe you need to do about that. So, I'll be back. And I'm going to have a guest on soon. Not that you're ever tired of listening to me. That was my little preview of my Halloween voice. Anyway, I'm glad you spent some time with me, and I hope that you have a great, wonderful day. Okay, talk to you soon, my friends. Bye-bye.
Mr. B's Dinner Party is hosted by Scott Bertelson, edited and produced by Troy Thompson, recorded and distributed at Sunnyside Farm Studios. Music is provided by Soundstripe and platformed by Buzzsprout. Like our page on Facebook, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share with your friends. Listen and enjoy every other Wednesday. Conversational morsels for the mind on Mr. B's Dinner Party.